¿Qué tal, comunidad? Aquí es su abogado Ray Ibarra Maldonado. Estamos haciendo esto en inglés. We're going to do this video in English. Si está buscando un español, busca en la página. This is talking about common mistakes you make when filling out a DACA application. So we have to start with the legalese. This is not legal advice. I'm not telling you how to fill out a DACA application. I'm not filling out your form for you. This is not creating an attorney-client privileged conversation. This is simply going over what I've seen as the common mistakes from my experience doing DACA applications, being in immigration court, being in USCIS interviews, things that you see, get calls from people that why their form was rejected, why it was denied, etc., etc. Going to go over some of those so folks have a general understanding. Does that sound good? So if you like that, stay tuned. Here it comes. And if you think someone else might like it, do me a favor and give us a share. Always appreciate where you're listening from. Feel free to drop that down in the comments below as well. All right. So DACA, let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. We have right here the form I-821D. This is the first form that we fill out when we're doing someone's DACA application. And already in the top lines, even above where it starts asking for any information, this is one of the more common mistakes that I've seen why an application gets rejected. All right. So if you look over here, it'll say an expiration date. You want to make sure that you have the most current form of the I-821D, or else the form could get rejected. Now here's the crazy thing. It doesn't really tell you exactly which is the most recent form. So if you're looking at a form, someone emails you the form or whatever, or you're doing printed out forms, if it doesn't have the most recent date of the one on the USCIS website, then it's an old form, right? So this one pulled straight from USCIS website is 4/30/21. 2021 is when it expires. You don't want to use any form, even if they're exactly the same. You don't want to use any form other than the most recent one. I've seen this very often result in a rejection of the form when it's an improper form, right? Other folks have, and I've been getting a lot of questions on YouTube. Someone asked me if we have to fill out this section. If you're doing it by yourself or a non-attorney, then you don't put anything here. This does not mean that you need to have an attorney. If we're doing it, then I put an X there and I put my bar number there from the great state of Arizona here, and then we start filling out the rest. If you're not doing it on your own, or you're doing it on your own, you don't have an attorney, you don't need an attorney. It's not necessary to fill out DACA, all right? So going through it now, it says here, read form I-821D instructions for information how to complete the form. I would suggest reading through the entire instruction form before you even start going to it. And this is just general life advice, right? If there's a form and instructions, go to the instructions and read through those before you go off and start pounding things away. So here we go. If it's in same form, if it's an initial or if it's a renewal, so you click the box there for either one of those. If it's a renewal, there's where you put where your term expires. Your full legal name, your government name. So usually you want to match this with whatever you have on your government ID that you're turning in as well. Your mailing address, the same address they want to see on the I-765. You want to make sure you have everything here correctly. If there's an apartment, suite, floor number, you mark that in and get that down here. Right? Addresses are very, very specific because this is where they'll send you correspondence. This is where they'll eventually send you a work permit as well. So you want to make sure you have those correctly filled out. Are you now or have you ever been in removal proceedings? Okay. This one's kind of crazy. If you mark yes to this one, you probably want an immigration attorney to review your entire file before you send it off. I've seen instances of people who have prior removal orders that didn't know about them, but because they were in immigration proceedings when they were a child underneath their parents' application, and their parents never told them how it ended up. So before we take any action and send off a DACA for somebody, if they've been in removal proceedings before, you really want to make sure you know completely what happened in that case and that the person is okay before we send off a DACA application. The strange thing is, you can get DACA approved with a prior removal order if you have one, but you definitely want to know beforehand all the implications could come from turning your information over to the government. So this is a very tricky question at the border or with the United States by an immigration agent. So if you have an expedited order of removal, you were crossing one time, and they gave you what's called an ER, expedited order of removal, you're going to have to answer yes to this. You're going to want your case completely reviewed by an experienced immigration attorney before you move forward and get the proper advisements. And then it has the status. So if you still have hearings coming up, I see this one every now and again, not completely filled out correctly because it's legalese. Currently in proceedings means you still have scheduled court hearings with an immigration judge, or your case is at the BIA, right? Currently in proceedings but administratively closed. This was a beautiful legal concept we were able to have under the Obama administration that I hope comes back even more under the Biden administration. That means that the government and the judge agreed to put your file into a little folder. You didn't technically win your case. You didn't technically lose your case. It's just temporarily paused where the case has been terminated, which is a great thing to happen. If you're subject to a final order, which is a nice way of saying you've been deported and you've been ordered to leave the country, or other, last court hearing, location of proceeding, where that court is at, right? Then we go over here if you have an A number. A numbers are numbers that are assigned to you by the government. They may, again, if you were in proceedings before, you probably had an A number. If you had a work permit before, you probably had an A number. If you have a U.S. Social Security number, very, very careful. Right? Some of these questions are a little tricky. So if you went down to Food City and you put 50 on it for a social, that's not what you want to put down here, right? Even though it says if any, sometimes you can be a little bit too literal. We would only put here if you ever had a valid U.S. Social Security number. Never want to put anything else. Date of birth is pretty explanatory, pretty self-explanatory. And this is where it gets fun here. City, town, village of birth. So they're asking for the city, then the country, where you currently live. Now, you can only apply for DACA if you're in the USA. So you put USA here. A lot of times you see people put something different there. Country, citizenship of nationality, wherever you are a citizen of, be it Mexico, Guatemala, Ireland, whatever it is. And note it here, it doesn't say anywhere for the state, right? So it just says the city and then the country, so don't worry about the state. Whether or not you're married, widowed, single, or divorced, you put that down here. Other names used, this often gets complicated, right? If your name is Jose Sanchez Cuevas, and you put that up there, but sometimes you've only gone by Jose Sanchez, you want to put that here, or Jose Cuevas, right? And there's additional information at the back that you can put in there as well. Then we go over to ethnicity. Yeah, we have to say that Hispanics are considered white. That's how they technically want you to fill it out. Your height, your weight, your eye color, your hair color. Part 2 for initial and renewal request. I have been continuously residing in the U.S. since at least June 15, 2007, present time. If you mark no, that's probably just going to be a no on your application as well. So you want to make sure that you have been here from 2007 up until the present time. If anybody has been out of the country for any period of time, you definitely want to have your case reviewed by an attorney first. You still might be eligible, right? Continuous presence is a legal definition, continuous presence. And if you have some exits, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be denied, okay? And we got questions coming in over here. Sorry about that. For some reason, not letting me add all of them to the broadcast. But what if you've been with someone for a long time, but not married, but consider yourselves married? So if you've been with someone for 30 years, you guys got 5 kids, you vacation together, you call each other husband and wife or husband and husband, whatever it is, but the government does not recognize it, you are single, right? You're married if you're in a legal relationship that the government recognizes. So you want to make sure that you don't mark married if you're not actually legally married. Yep, there you go. I was breaking it down for us. And here we have the information on the travel. Again, you want to make sure that you have your case reviewed properly if you've ever been outside the country during this time period. Get down to part 2 here, residence and travel information. This is also, again, initials and renewals. Your address, you want to make sure that this from date matches up to the to date over here. So whatever this date is, you started living here, you stopped living here. And then make sure you have the apartments numbers in here correctly and you're filling all those boxes out the right way. You go down, lots of spaces for addresses and lots of extra space because this part usually takes quite a long time. Very frustrating part, the DACA application. Done a lot of DACA forums, a lot of DACA drives where it's a real anxious, tense situation where mom and dad and son or daughter are sitting there just grueling, trying to remember when they moved, what date, what month it was, what the apartment number was. So it takes some time. So relax, take a cup of coffee, and just map it all out and then plug it in here later, all right? Travel information, list your absences. Again, this is, sometimes on these forums you think, are these trick questions? Yeah, they are. You want to be very careful when listing your absences here because, again, if you have a brief absence, you can still qualify as continuously present in the country, but guess what? Answering this question the wrong way could lead to really serious implications down the road. If you're at a USCIS interview for adjustment of status 10 years from now, and you put on here that you came back and you left without inspection, you might have what's called a bar. You don't want a bar. You want to go to a bar, you know, when they're open back up. Well, I guess they're open now, but you want to go to a bar when it's safe to go to a bar. But you don't want to have a bar in the immigration world that keeps you from adjusting status because you incorrectly answered something on your DACA application or were advised incorrectly when you're filling this out. So be very, very careful and seek legal advice. We are getting this up. Oh, no. All right. What if you don't know the exact dates? I don't know why I won't let me put these up here. Sorry. But what if you don't know the exact dates? All the time. I can't remember doing a DACA application where I didn't kind of guesstimate. Oh, it was March. Remember the day? March 1, March 15th. Very often we would put those down. This is not a area where USCIS goes back 10 years ago and checks with the landlord whether or not you really lived there and you moved out on this exact date, right? You do want the dates to match, but they don't have to be exactly precise, okay? We go back over here and we got the, again, this section could really, boom, this could result in a DACA still approved, but could result in really bad stuff happening to you later down the road. So you want to be very, very careful. And what country of origin you have with your passport number, when it expires, if you ever had a border crossing card. What is a border crossing card? Border crossing card, tourist visa, B1, B2 visa, some of the different names that you see thrown around about them. So if you ever had a visa that gave you a legal entry into the country for tourist purposes, this is what they're talking about right here. Now, if it's the renewal, you get to skip this next part, but for initials, you go here. All right. If you answer no, you're going to get denied. Right? So one of their prerequisites is that you arrived and established residence prior to the age of 16. They want the date here that you came in, again, along with the great question we got earlier. Is it have to be the exact date? Well, you want to get it as close as you can to the exact date, but I've been in multiple USCIS interviews where even the officer's like, just come on, give me something. Give me something to put down here. It doesn't have to be exact. But you want to get it as exact as you can. Right. Shout out to Mine Winds for hooking up some amazing coffee up there in Flagstaff. They got a roastery now. This stuff is just awesome. Thank you, folks. date of initial entry, place of initial entry into the United States. If you came through a port of entry, this is where you would put, Houston or Dallas or Phoenix if you flew in an airplane. If you came in through the desert, right, you would put the nearest port of entry to wherever it is that the person crossed. Let's go over here as well. Immigration status on June 15, 2012. Someone to get DACA, you need to have had unlawful status on this. So it very much matters what you pick on this one. You need one of those. Those have a drop down. I don't think they have the drop down back in this when I started in 2012. So you definitely want to get one of these there. It's nice to have that little drop down now. And then go back up over here. And we have, were you ever issued an I-94? What on earth is that? El papel blanco, the little white paper. So when you have your border crossing card, you come across, that's what they asked about earlier. If you had that, then they want to know if you have this form that gave you permission to stay here longer. If you do, you answer yes. You write the number that's on that little white piece of paper right there. And when it expired, your status here. All right. And then over here, education, the school that you graduated from or the GED school that you're in, ladies and gentlemen. Spread the word on that. You don't have to already have your GED or already have your high school diploma. You can be currently in school. That's your drop that off here. And then name, city, state where you're attending, date of graduation if you've graduated. I would love to meet somebody who actually gets to fill out this part, because I've never, ever, in all my years of doing free advice for DACA clinics, on call for DACA drives, DACA organizations, have met a military service information person where we could fill this stuff out. So I'm not even going to go over it. But if you meet them, I'd like to take them out to lunch and give them a shout out, send them over. All right, now we get to part 4 here. This goes to initial and renewal. And man, this first question is a scary one. Have you ever, all caps ever, been arrested for, charged with, or convicted of a felony or misdemeanor, including incidents handled in juvenile court in the United States? Do not include minor traffic violations unless they were alcohol or drug related. A yes to this question, you want to talk to us. You want to talk to Abogada Juliana. You want to talk to myself. You want to talk to us to make sure that this is not going to mess you up in the future. Very, very, very important. Some of these crimes that you might admit to could really mess you up down the road. So you want to be very, very careful with this. Even have juvenile court cases now that they have in there. So be very, very careful. And this is a tough question that you have to pry out of people when you're sitting down talking to them, filling out their form. Have you ever been arrested before? No. Have you ever seen a police officer before? Yeah. Has that police officer ever put you in handcuffs before? Yes, they have. Okay. Unfortunately, legally, that's an arrest, right? When your reasonable person would feel they're not free to leave, that's the definition of an arrest in the legal terms, legal sense of the word. So you don't want to answer no to this question and then go do your fingerprints and get a letter saying you were arrested on so-and-so date. Why did you put no on your application? Please explain. Not a position you want to be in. Not at all. So when we're doing this question with folks, we have to spend a significant amount of time on it to make sure that the person has never been arrested. Because a lot of times you think, general people that I'm speaking with think it's not an arrest if it doesn't end up in a conviction. No, there's a whole bunch of questions that we need to ask to parse it out to make sure someone's going to be really safe on this question. Have you ever been arrested for or charged with a conviction of a crime in any other country? So in your country of origin or any other country you're visiting in, then you want that. Either answering yes, you're going to need a lot of documents from the initial arrest report, which you'll get from the police department, from the court documents, which you'll get from the court. So you'll have to go to multiple locations and ask for a copy of your file. Don't just make the mistake of going to one place and thinking if it's not there, it's not the other, because it might be. So put your work in, put your time in to make sure you got everything. And number 3, have you ever engaged in, do you continue to engage in, or plan to engage in terrorist activities? Kind of self-explanatory. Gang membership as well. This is, again, one of those questions that you could say, hey, yeah, I was a reformed gangbanger, don't do that anymore. You know, you just open up a can of worms here, so be very careful. And these questions all go to what's called grounds of inadmissibility over here. So you want to be very careful when you're answering those questions. My pleasure. Yeah, Sam's got a good question here going back to the ports of entry. I know it's a desert, I know it's 9. How am I going to tell them port of entry? Great, great question. That's when you got to put the work in. Maybe call mom, call dad, call family member, whoever else was with you, and try to get the area. And then you got to go on Google and look up what the closest port of entry is to that location. Do the court police documents have to be certified? It's best to always have certified documents to turn in to the immigration department when they're asking for something. And that's because you want to be very clear that you're not manipulating, you're not turning anything into the government that's falsified, that this comes straight from the court system. Of course, the technical question here, the technical statement that they're giving us here is simply to turn in the documents. But this here is clear certified court disposition. So from the court certified arrest record, I would do it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Only requirement here is that the court disposition is certified. Legalese, what does that mean? It means there's a fancy stamp on it from immigration, from the court, saying this is a complete and true copy of their entire file. Right? All these documents they're specifically asking for a reason. So a certified court disposition means that. It means they want to see the entire court record with a certified copy. The arrest record, that means they want that. The charging document, the sentencing record for each and every arrest. It's not enough to just go get the police report. It's not enough to just go get the court record. Everything they ask for is what they want to see. And again, before you turn any of that into the government, you want to make sure you have a reputable, knowledgeable immigration attorney having reviewed that first. All these questions here are meant to look for ways that they could possibly deny you on, so be very, very careful. I have, believe it or not, even seen, not on the DACA application, but when someone answers a question like this in a yes, thinking, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to tell the truth. Yeah, Viene Navidad, right? All right, we're dealing with the U.S. government here, folks. And if you answer that question in the yes, it's going to get a lot more questions. And I've seen criminal cases that result from someone answering a yes to a similar question on a form, a civil form. So be very, very careful when answering these questions. And some of these, of course, you would just laugh at, but some of them you'd be surprised. Of course, Dalila, my pleasure to get this up, do as best as we can. Done a lot of these DACA drives, and I know, unfortunately, there's sometimes that people have great intentions and they want to help, and attorneys are expensive. I understand, I get it, but you really got to know your stuff if you're going to help somebody out on a form that can impact them for the rest of their life. So here's where you would put the certification that you can read in English. If you use an interpreter, where the interpreter's information would come in, and make sure you read all this correctly. Right? I also understand that knowingly, willfully providing materially false information can be a felony under federal law. I authorize USCIS to release my records to determine if I'm eligible for deferred action. So this is a real government form that you're turning in. Anything false you put on there, they can hammer you for it. So those are some of the common mistakes we see. If somebody helped you with the application, this is where their information would come here as well. This is important, right? If you're going to someone that's not an attorney and they're saying, I'm just going to fill it out for you, and then you take it from here, but they're doing all the filling, you want to have their information in case something comes back wrong, that you can go and say, hey, this person helped me and this person said this. If this is blank, then you're on your own. And then you're the one that's saying, I did it all by myself and I did it all. If I did it wrong, then it was my bad. Here's the area where we put on additional information here. Usually use these for addresses, multiple addresses, or where somewhere's lived at and whatnot. All right? So those are some of the common mistakes. Just to review them again, the big common mistakes we see: using the wrong form, using an outdated form, mailing it to the wrong address we've seen before. I've seen somebody, I shouldn't laugh, I'm sorry, but you've seen someone's wait over a year for a response when we do the investigation, and it turns out the document preparer sent the application to the completely wrong address. It wasn't even a government address, and that's why they never got anything back from the government. So this is the form I-821D. You want to be very, very careful when filling it out. These kinds of applications are used to get your work permit for DACA, but they can also be used against you at a later date, right? For instance, I once had a similar question to this on I think it was a 485 application, where the person put, and it was a different question, but they put, entered iwi when they actually were waived through the port of entry. So that ended up in the immigration court, the judge saying, I don't believe you that you came through or waived through, or we're going for what's called a kiloton entrance, because on your 485 you put iwi. So therefore, I'm not going to let you adjust status in front of me. So all the answers to every single one of these questions, the government, if 10 years from now the person's in removal proceedings, will look at this application, every single question, and look at the new application and try to figure out contradictory things in there to cross-examine the person during the hearing. So it is with utmost importance that every single question is answered with complete and truth and detail, so that it doesn't come back to hurt the person later on down the road. Right? That is form I-821D. That's the DACA form. Now, is that the only form to fill out when you're going for DACA? No. Here's the official USCIS website with still that beautiful update up there. I hope it stays up there for a lot more time. You also have the I-765, I-65WS, and if you want, the G-1145 to fill out as well. All right? So again, make sure that all the questions are answered completely, all the right forms are filled out. I didn't even touch the documents. I didn't even go over it. How long have we been talking for already and haven't even hit it on the documents to turn in there? But you want to make sure after everything's filled out correctly that it's mailed to the correct address, the proper fee is in there, who it's addressed to is done correctly. All these little steps that we do day in and day out that we know like the back of our hand, you got to make sure that you know them inside and out if you're going to put yourself up there and say, I want to help out somebody. And the best way to help out somebody is to be an ally, is to help them out with their application. It's good. It's great intent, but again, my advice is to make sure you really know what you're doing before you step up and do that. And Mitzi has a great question here. Thoughts on tomorrow's DACA decision. So tomorrow, our friend Judge Hannon, say that a bit facetiously because he ruined DAPA and expanded DACA a few years back. He has in front of him motion for summary judgment from Texas and other racist states to end the DACA program completely. I'm nervous because he denied a motion to continue the hearing from the 22nd to January 4th. Like, why would you not, let someone spend the holidays with their families and give a little bit of continuance if you don't have something ill-intentioned to do? So, don't have a crystal ball. My guess is deny the motion to continue. because he wants to issue a negative decision somewhat soon. I don't think he'll rule from the bench tomorrow. I don't think he'll say, here's my opinion. I think he'll take what's called the matter under advisement and issue a written decision maybe before Christmas, maybe before the end of the week. Because if he didn't extend the court hearing, it means he's anxious to put something out there. Hope I'm wrong. Hope it comes out the other way. Right? Absolutely do. But that is a huge possibility that it could go the other way. And we got a question here. How long after sending the application do they take out the money for the application? How long till they let you know they got the application? So if you fill out the G1145, it comes in, of course, Mitzi, my pleasure. It comes in faster than if they just send the mailing one. So G1145 gives you e-notification, so definitely sign up for that. And as far as when the money comes out, it varies, but it is sooner rather than later. What I always tell people to do, because it's the safest way to do it, is to use a cashier's check, money order, because you know that money's already come out of the account. So if you're using a different bank account, or you filled out the form for a credit card or something like that, you know, you never know. You want to make sure that it's the easiest way, so using a cashier's check, all right? And if he was to advise no continuance, what happens with applications that were sent during the open period? So Adriana, great question. Open period right now, right? We can go back to USCIS website. It's clear as day. It is clear as day, this DACA application that we have up there, that you can definitely fill it out and send it. I think anybody that gets there while that period is still open, until his decision and until USCIS takes that down, which could take a few days as well, I think those cases will get adjudicated. So I do think we have a few days. Again, it could be wrong. It's just a guess, folks. It's purely a guess. He could rule from the bench tomorrow and order USCIS to take that down. You never know. But I think anybody that gets in there before will have their case adjudicated. Because there's a reliance interest. We're relying on what the federal government put on their website. We're submitting money and our application on that reliance that it should be adjudicated until it is changed. So I think everybody that does that will be fine. So Missy says, first-time applicants, keep sending them in. 2 questions, thank you. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to you and the fam. Yes. Sam, we got people here behind me. We said, just come in, come in, come in. Let's get them out, let's get them out. We're trying to churn them out as fast as we can and get them in before there is that, if there is a negative decision. So definitely first-time applications, if you can get them out the door today or even tomorrow, whatever, until there's decision. There's no reason to stop working, stop grinding, to not get them out until the decision is issued. And let's hope. Let's hope. Just like I was wrong on DACA Supreme Court. I said it was going to come down 5-4 the other way. It came down 5-4 for us. That's great. So I hope I'm wrong here. Hope Judge Hannon says, instead of being a Grinch, I'm going to be Santa and I'm going to let DACA keep going. You never know. Stranger things have happened. But if it does come out Grinch style and say end the program, USCIS then has to take action and say, we're going to follow Hannon, not follow the other judge. It becomes a complete chaos. So before the chaos happens, let's get all the applications in that we can. All right? And no problem. Pleasure is all mine. And yes, indeed. And sorry, some of your questions are awesome, and it's not letting me add to the broadcast, so my apologies for that, but thank you for the wonderful questions. And that is it, ladies and gents, the 100 level, how to filling out the DACA application, the common mistakes that we've seen. I've seen folks get them rejected for using old forms, sending to the wrong address, having the wrong fee on there, writing the fee to the wrong people, and then seeing people really impacted later down the road in immigration court or an adjustment interview when incorrect information is put on the forms. Haven't gone over the documentation, but here's some of the common mistakes we see there. People can sometimes submit things to the government that'll help prove continuous presence, but also helps prove the government's case that you're inadmissible to the country. So you don't want to be a good-natured person that's like, yeah, I'm going to help you with your DACA, give me everything you got, you're throwing things in there, and you put in there a social security number that's not valid, that doesn't belong to the person, but has their name on it. That one simple document in the documents this thick that you send over to the government could someday be used against them to deny their residency. So be very, very careful. That's a huge one. Go through every single paper and make sure there's no social security numbers on there that have been used in the past. The DACA will still be approved, right? Because it's not a prerequisite. They don't ask anything about social security numbers that you went through the application. So you can get DACA approved and be fine and dandy now, but years down the road, you could be really messing somebody's life up, all right? Can you also share the document list ideas on our page? Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Malano. So we have a great resource on our webpage. I'll put that comment down here right below Dr. Malano's comment, where we have the checklist. We have the sheets that you can use where you print out for each thing, continuous presence from each year, proof you entered before 16, your ID, you print those out, you put your documents underneath them. We'll throw those up for you all as well. And we'll be available on the website. They are on the website right now. There's a specific link. I'll drop them down here below for you, ladies and gents. Any other questions, comments, concerns you have, feel free to hit us up. Of course, we are more than willing to help you with the DACA applications. And give us a call, 602-910-4040. And best of luck to you. And let's hope we have a great decision on the Texas case before Christmas or before the new year. And if not, we keep plugging away. Joe Biden, Mayorkas coming back into power in 2021. And I'm sure they will do positive things for DACA recipients and their family members. Thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. We'll see you soon.